Have you ever wondered how we measure the power and potential devastation of a hurricane? Hurricanes, nature's most powerful storms, hold a fascination for many of us. Their sheer size, speed, and destructive potential can be both terrifying and awe-inspiring, but beyond their dramatic spectacle, understanding hurricanes is of vital importance. They can and do cause significant damage and loss of life. Hurricanes form over warm ocean waters and are powered by the heat energy they absorb. This energy is what gives hurricanes their destructive power. They can unleash torrential rains, violent winds, and devastating storm surges. In fact, hurricanes are so powerful that they can even alter the Earth's climate, albeit temporarily. But how do we quantify this power? How do we know whether a hurricane is a minor threat or a major catastrophe waiting to happen? These are crucial questions for those living in hurricane-prone areas, as well as for meteorologists trying to predict and track these storms. The answer lies in a tool called the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale. Named after the two engineers who developed it in the early 1970s, the scale is a simple yet effective way to categorize hurricanes based on their wind speed. It ranges from Category 1, the least intense, to Category 5, the most extreme. This scale gives us a benchmark. It helps us understand what a hurricane's winds are capable of and what kind of damage they might cause. It informs evacuation orders, emergency response plans, and even building codes. But as we'll see, the Saffir-Simpson scale is not without its limitations. It's a tool, yes, but like any tool, it's only as good as our understanding of how to use it. And that understanding is continually evolving as we learn more about these incredible storms. So join us as we dive into the world of hurricanes, exploring their power, their potential for destruction, and the tools we use to measure them. To fully appreciate the power of these storms, we need a way to measure them. Enter the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale. The Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale isn't simply about wind. It's a crucial tool in predicting potential damage and flooding. But what is it exactly? Well, let's delve into that. In the early 70s, two gentlemen, Herbert Saffir, a civil engineer, and Robert Simpson, a meteorologist, came together to create a system that could provide a clear, concise understanding of the potential dangers of an approaching hurricane. Their collaboration resulted in the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale, a 1 to 5 categorization system based on a hurricane's sustained wind speed. This scale estimates potential property damage, with Category 5 hurricanes predicted to cause the most harm. The scale's primary purpose is to provide a simple way to gauge hurricane intensity and the potential risk to property and human life. It's not just about the wind, but the havoc it can wreak. High winds can cause objects to become airborne projectiles, damage structures, and even lead to loss of life. But the Saffir-Simpson scale also takes into account the storm surge and flooding potential. After all, water damage from hurricanes can be just as devastating, if not more so, than wind damage. Each category of the scale represents a level of potential devastation. Category 1 is the least severe, with winds from 74 to 95 miles per hour. But don't be fooled. Even a Category 1 hurricane can cause significant damage. And at the other end of the scale, a Category 5 hurricane boasts wind speeds of 156 miles per hour or more. These are the real monsters of the hurricane world, with the power to cause catastrophic damage. With this scale, we can categorize hurricanes and predict potential damage. It's a vital tool in our arsenal against these powerful storms, helping us understand the risk, prepare effectively, and hopefully save lives. The Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale breaks down hurricanes into 5 categories. An elegant system, it allows us to better understand the potential power and damage each hurricane can inflict. Now let's delve into the specifics of each category. In the first category, we find the beginners of the hurricane world. Category 1 hurricanes have sustained wind speeds that range from 74 to 95 miles per hour. These winds can cause some damage to property, primarily to unanchored mobile homes, as well as poorly constructed signs and piers. You might also see some damage to vegetation, with large branches broken off and shallow-rooted trees potentially being toppled. There is also the risk of low-lying coastal roads and unprotected boat moorings being inundated due to storm surge. The second category, with wind speeds ranging from 96 to 110 miles per hour, sees a significant jump in potential destruction. At this stage, we can expect extensive property damage. This includes major roof and siding damage to well-constructed homes and near-complete destruction of mobile homes. Many shallow-rooted trees will be snapped or uprooted, blocking numerous roads. Near total power loss is expected, potentially lasting for several days to weeks. Moving on to Category 3, we find ourselves in the realm of major hurricanes. These hurricanes boast wind speeds of 111 to 129 miles per hour. The damage at this level can be devastating. Well-built framed homes may incur major damage or removal of roof decking and gable ends. Many trees will be snapped or uprooted, blocking many roads. Electricity and water will be unavailable for several days to weeks after the storm passes. Next up, Category 4 hurricanes, with wind speeds of 130 to 156 miles per hour. These are the second most severe hurricanes on the scale. The damage at this level is often catastrophic. Well-built framed homes can sustain severe damage with loss of most of the roof structure and/or some exterior walls. Most trees will be snapped or uprooted and power poles downed. Fallen trees and power poles will isolate residential areas. Power outages will last for weeks to possibly months, and most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks or months. Finally, we have Category 5 hurricanes, the most severe on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. These hurricanes have wind speeds of 157 miles per hour or higher. The damage caused by these hurricanes is catastrophic, often leaving areas uninhabitable for weeks or even months. Well-built homes can be completely destroyed, with total roof failure and wall collapse. Fallen trees and power poles will isolate residential areas. Power outages will last for weeks to possibly months. Most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks or months. Each category paints a more severe picture than the last. The wind speeds increase, the potential for flooding rises, and the damage inflicted grows exponentially more severe. It's important to remember that these categories only describe the wind speed and potential property damage. They do not take into account other dangerous aspects of hurricanes such as storm surge, rainfall-induced floods, and tornadoes. As you can see, each increase in category signifies a significant increase in potential damage and danger. Understanding the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale is a key step in preparing for and surviving these powerful storms. It allows us to better anticipate the potential impact of a hurricane and take appropriate measures to protect ourselves and our properties. While the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale is a valuable tool, it's not without its critics. Like any scientific measure, it has its strengths and weaknesses. Some of these criticisms and limitations stem from what the scale does, and more importantly, does not measure. Firstly, the Saffir-Simpson scale primarily focuses on wind speed. It categorizes hurricanes from 1 to 5, based on their sustained wind speed. However, wind speed is but one aspect of a hurricane's potential destructiveness. Critics argue that by focusing solely on wind speed, the scale may overlook other critical factors that could contribute to a hurricane's destructive power. This brings us to the second limitation. The scale does not account for the size of the storm. A Category 5 hurricane might seem more threatening than a Category 3, but if the Category 3 hurricane is significantly larger in size, it could cause more widespread damage. The Saffir-Simpson scale doesn't differentiate between these scenarios. It's like judging the impact of a car crash based solely on the speed of one vehicle, without considering the size or weight of the other vehicle involved. Another criticism centers on the scale's inability to measure rainfall. As we've seen in recent years, water damage from heavy rainfall can be just as destructive, if not more so, than wind damage. Flooding from hurricanes can devastate communities, disrupt local economies, and cause significant loss of life. Yet the Saffir-Simpson scale does not take into account the potential for flooding caused by excessive rainfall. Also, the scale does not consider the speed at which a hurricane is moving. A slow-moving storm can cause prolonged and intense damage in a specific area, while a fast-moving storm might pass over quickly, causing less overall damage. Yet, both could have the same wind speeds and thus be categorized the same on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Lastly, the scale doesn't account for storm surges. Storm surges are abnormal rises in sea level that can flood coastal areas, causing immense damage. Some critics argue that storm surges, not wind, are the most dangerous aspect of a hurricane. Yet the Saffir-Simpson scale doesn't measure them. It's like assessing the danger of a forest fire without considering the dryness of the vegetation. However, it's important to remember that the Saffir-Simpson scale is not meant to be a comprehensive measure of a hurricane's potential impact. It's a wind scale, and as such, it does an excellent job of measuring wind speeds. And while it may not consider other factors, understanding a hurricane's wind speed is crucial for predicting its path and potential destructiveness. The Saffir-Simpson scale has its limitations, but it's also a tool that has saved countless lives by helping meteorologists provide early warnings to those in the path of a hurricane. It's a starting point, a way to categorize and communicate the intensity of these powerful storms. In the end, it's not about whether the Saffir-Simpson scale is perfect. It's about understanding what it measures, and more importantly, what it doesn't. It's about using it as one tool among many in our ongoing efforts to predict and prepare for the devastating power of hurricanes. Despite its limitations, the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale remains a vital tool in hurricane prediction. It gives us a simple, straightforward way to understand the intensity of a hurricane, and that, in itself, is a critical first step in hurricane preparedness. We've covered a lot of ground today, so let's summarize the key points about the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. Developed in the early 1970s by civil engineer Herbert Saffir and meteorologist Robert Simpson, the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale is a critical tool used to categorize hurricane intensity. It measures the sustained wind speed of hurricanes, assigning them into one of 5 categories, each representing increasing levels of damage and danger. Categories 1 and 2 are considered to be minor hurricanes, but don't let the term fool you. They can still cause significant damage, with winds reaching up to 110 miles per hour. Category 3 is where we step into major hurricane territory, with wind speeds ranging from 111 to 130 miles per hour. Categories 4 and 5 are the most severe, with winds exceeding 131 miles per hour, capable of causing catastrophic damage. It's essential to remember that the Saffir-Simpson scale only measures wind speed. It doesn't account for other dangerous aspects of a hurricane, such as storm surge, rain-induced floods, or tornadoes. These elements can cause extensive harm, even if a hurricane ranks lower on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Additionally, the scale is not a perfect predictor of damage. A Category 1 hurricane can cause more destruction than a Category 3 hurricane, depending on factors like population density and infrastructure quality. The Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale is a valuable tool in understanding the potential intensity of a hurricane. However, it is just one piece of the puzzle. To fully comprehend the threat of a hurricane, we must also consider other factors like storm surge, rainfall, and the specific characteristics of the area in its path. Understanding this scale is key to comprehending the power and potential danger of hurricanes. So how does the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale impact us in real life? Now that's a question worth digging into. The scale's influence goes way beyond just categorizing hurricanes. It's a tool that directly affects our lives, especially if we live in hurricane-prone areas. When a hurricane forms, one of the first things meteorologists do is estimate its wind speed. This measurement isn't just for the record books, it's used to determine the hurricane's category on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Once the category is established, it becomes a cornerstone of the weather forecasts you see on TV, hear on the radio, or read online. These forecasts, based on the Saffir-Simpson scale, are critical for emergency management professionals. They rely on these forecasts to make informed decisions about evacuations and disaster preparedness. If a Category 1 hurricane is predicted, the response might be different than if a Category 5 is heading our way. Take evacuation plans, for instance. These plans are not created overnight. They're based on a complex blend of factors, including a hurricane's predicted path, its category on the Saffir-Simpson scale, and the vulnerability of the local area. A Category 1 hurricane might warrant voluntary evacuations of the most vulnerable areas, while a Category 5 might lead to mandatory evacuations of a much larger region. Without the Saffir-Simpson scale, organizing these evacuations would be significantly more difficult, but it's not just about evacuations. The Saffir-Simpson scale also influences how we prepare for hurricanes. If a Category 3 or higher is predicted, you might see people boarding up their windows, a measure typically not taken for less severe storms. Emergency services might also boost their staffing levels, and hospitals could start preparing for an influx of patients. The scale's impact extends to the aftermath of a hurricane too. Once the storm has passed, the category it reached at its peak can give us a rough idea of what to expect in terms of damage. This is crucial for planning recovery efforts and allocating resources where they are most needed. The Saffir-Simpson scale even plays a role in the insurance industry. Insurance companies often use it to help set their rates for homeowners in hurricane-prone areas. A home in an area frequently hit by Category 4 or 5 hurricanes is likely to have higher insurance rates than one in an area usually affected by lower category storms. Now, it's important to remember that the Saffir-Simpson scale is not a crystal ball. It can't predict the exact impacts of a hurricane. Each storm is unique, and a lot depends on factors like the size of the storm, its speed of movement, and the specific characteristics of the area it hits. But the scale gives us a valuable starting point for understanding and preparing for these powerful storms. So, in real life, the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale is more than just a scientific tool. It's a lifeline. It helps us predict and prepare for hurricanes, and it guides our response when those hurricanes strike. It's a key part of how we protect our homes, our communities, and ourselves from the destructive power of these storms. The Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale, while not perfect, plays a crucial role in our ability to prepare for and survive these powerful storms.